Hello, everyone. I'm Darien Gold, and welcome to All Things Pilates, Season 7. In this season, you'll hear inspiring stories about the healing power of Pilates and from teachers around the world who will share how they're helping to make Joseph Pilates' wish come true by bringing more attention to the gift he left us, Contrology, transforming bodies one studio and one country at a time. Our guest, Heidi Miller, a Pilates studio owner in Colorado, has a lot to say about the Pilates profession and, in particular, teachers of Pilates. As the former host of the very first Pilates podcast called Beyond the Movement, which began in 2005, Heidi held conversations with teachers in part about how effective and powerful the Pilates method is, especially beyond the studio. But in today's environment with social media as the dominant connector, what's been revealed is an ugly truth about the Pilates profession. Many teachers, instead of being supportive and encouraging, diminish their peers, and worse, many are bullied. I, too, have been acutely aware of the lack of encouragement amongst many Pilates colleagues. Heidi initially had reached out to inquire about my mentoring program, and through our discussions, she inspired me to add another option, and the Mentors Table was born. It's a mentor, mentee, and peer-to-peer monthly gathering on Zoom. Heidi and I both feel that there needs to be a safe place for teachers to come together for Q&A, support, and to learn from each other. Welcome to the show, Heidi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's lovely to see you. And thank you again for sort of getting the ball rolling. And I know we'll talk about this more, but the Mentors Table really is about pivoting onto a lane that is positive and supportive. There is a place. No question is stupid. You can ask any question, and some of us, we're going to probably be thinking of the same question, and if we don't know the answer, we'll all figure it out together. So thank you for inspiring that, because hopefully we're creating a new movement.
Yes, I definitely hope so, because I think there needs to be more camaraderie, and partnership, and not this feeling of, division.
100%. Let me know and let our listeners know how the Pilates method even came into your life. And was it love at first 100?
When I first came to Pilates, I was doing my internship from college at a gym in Fort Collins. And in the gym, there was a Pilates studio. And I kept just walking through the studio to the spine clinic because I was interested in the physical therapy clinic and also the gym. So I just kept walking back and forth through the Pilates studio. I would watch through these big windows. I had no idea what it was and thought it looked pretty strange, and also thought it looked kind of easy. And so, because I was an amateur bodybuilder, I was in the military.
You thought you were so strong.
I thought I was so strong.
So fit.
Oh man, it was just so funny. And so how I ended up doing Pilates was I have a back injury. I broke 7 vertebrae when I was a teenager. And my back was just chronically hurting all the time.
How did you do that?
I fell on the ice, which is so strange, but it was like just the right angle. I fell on the ice and...
Were you ice skating or?
No, I was walking across a parking lot with really stupid shoes because I was 14 and they were cute. And there was a truck in a parking lot like coming towards me. And it was sliding. So I started running to get out of the way because I thought I'm going to get hit by this truck. And so in the process of trying to get away from this truck, I slipped And I fell so hard that I actually hit my head first, then my bottom, and then my head. I went like back and forth. So when I
You slipped backwards. The feet went underneath you.
yes, I slipped, yes. And so they were more concerned about my head because I hit my head. And so I had bleeding in my brain. So they never even looked at my back, even though I told them my back was hurting. So anyway, and I kept telling them like my back really hurts, like afterwards. And of course, because I was a teenager, they just didn't really listen. So it wasn't until like 3 years later that I went to a chiropractor and he took x-rays. So they never even x-rayed my back in the emergency room. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, you have broken 7 vertebrae. I don't know if I'm going to work with you because this is,
So extreme.
so extreme." And so I was like, well, that makes sense. No wonder why it hurts so much all the time.
So you were in pain for 3 years until you went to,
Well, honestly, I was in pain chronically from the age of 14 until I came to Pilates. And even after starting Pilates, it took about three, maybe probably more realistically, 5 years before I got to a point that
you were pain free.
that was pain free, And so that is a huge inspiration for me to tell people that you can get pain free with the Pilates method with such an extreme injury, but it does take a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of effort. When I came to Pilates, I had my back was hurting all the time, but I also tore my rotator cuff. And I think the tearing my rotator cuff while, lifting weights, I was like, well, I might as well try this Pilates thing. I keep walking through the studio, right? And so that's how I came to it as I thought, well, I might as well try Pilates because I can't lift weights right now. And so then I tried Pilates and I was like,
Well, what did you try first?
I was on the reformer
That was your
first. So I
first.
would say, yeah, I was on the reformer first. And what's so funny is that I was so humbled by how hard it was. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Like I couldn't even believe how hard it was. And because I had been using my body completely differently. But I also sensed something in it that felt really different and good in my core. And I thought there's something here that I need to explore. So I think it was more like, I don't know if it's love at first hundreds as it was, this is something really hard and humbling and I must conquer this because that was my
Mindset.
kind of attitude, my mindset at the time. But eventually it became more than that. But at first it definitely came from this is hard and now I must conquer this. And of course you can't conquer Pilates. It just doesn't work that way.
No, as soon as you think you are good, something is presented to you, and then you're humbled all over again.
Yes, it's a constant process of humbling. Yeah.
Yes, which is good for us humans.
Yeah. It's really hard though for a perfectionist.
Yes, because our listeners should know that Heidi and I both are Virgos.
Yes. The perfectionism is very much a part of our
Well, we're attracted certainly to the precision of the work, right?
yes.
Okay, so you're on the reformer. You recognize right away, as most athletes do, that there is something sort of unreachable or unattainable in the beginning, and you want to say, no, I'm going to kill this thing and I'm going to conquer it. But were you already starting to feel an ease in your body that maybe you probably had never felt before? And that was another indication that this was definitely you wanted to pursue this?
I think that in the very beginning, I think I sensed it, but maybe wasn't quite there yet.
No, it wasn't tangible.
It wasn't tangible, but I would say that definitely when it came time to start a program to learn Pilates, That's when I really got that idea. Because I had to train for a year, at least a year to get into the training school because you have to at least have some experience, because it was an advanced training school. You can't just walk in without having any experience. I barely passed.
Was this a contemporary program or classical? And did you even know that these two sides existed?
I had no idea I had no idea. All I knew is that this school had a great reputation. I knew nothing about classical versus contemporary. I knew none of that. I just knew they had a really great program and a good reputation. I also knew that the teacher I was working with, that was the school that they had went to. So that, I had gotten recommendation from them. So yeah, I had no clue. And in fact, what's really funny is that I didn't even know when on the first night of the training, like lecture series, they were talking about the training program being at least a year long. And I thought it was 4 months long because that's how long the lecture series was. And I was like, wait a minute, what? It's 1 year long? Well, I mean, yeah, if you can pass the physical exam, so it took me 3 years.
Actually, that was Joe's recommendation. People had to work 3 years with him.
Oh, well, it took me 3 years, and I would say that I passed, but there is so much depth that you continually learn, that you realize that you really didn't know as much as you thought when you pass. The exam, you're still just a baby at it, Yeah.
So early on, you knew that you wanted to go through a program and teach it.
Yeah, yeah.
You knew that early on.
Well, because I was already teaching physical movement as a profession. So I was a personal trainer, and I also worked in a physical therapy clinic as a physical therapy assistant. So
With your 7 broken vertebrae?
yeah, yeah. And so I wanted to help heal people's spines and also still trying to learn how to heal my own. And so that's why I was drawn to that work. And they just happened to be in the same building, which really worked well for me.
And then, what point do you say to yourself, okay, I may not know everything and I'm humbled, but I want to start my own studio?
Yeah,
And what was the name of your studio? Because you had a commercial space and now you have a home space.
right. Yeah, it was called Mountain View Pilates. Why I've always been somebody who likes to work for myself. So I don't think there was really any question about making my own space for that because that's my personality. But at the time, I was the only other classical Pilates studio on the south side of Fort Collins. So there was literally only, I believe, 2 studios at the time when I opened my studio space. So it also made a lot of business sense because I was far enough away from the studio that I used as my training studio for observation hours and things like that and teaching hours. I was far enough away from them not to be really of competition.
Well, where is this place, the magical place you're talking about?
Well, it doesn't exist anymore. So the studio that I trained at least in Fort Collins, they no longer exist. So yeah, they were, and honestly, I can't even think of what the name of their studio was. Like it's escaping me.
Okay.
But they were the
Okay.
main studio.
Because it was a while ago.
Yeah, so Gary Calderon, a great friend of mine, he actually opened the very first Pilates studio in Fort Collins in 1991, I believe. So it was his studio, and then the 2 people who worked for him. So he left Fort Collins for a while, and they opened a studio north of town, and I still can't remember the name of it. But anyway, they had it for years. They were like the only studio for a long time.
Well, 1991 is a while ago. And where did he get his training? Because we're already.
At the Pilates Center in Boulder. So Ramana actually helped set up that program, and she was there the first year. So Gary got to teach or got to learn with Romana in the studio as she was helping Amy and Rachel get the studio.
This was in the early 90s then.
Yeah. So he was in the first year's program, I believe, when they were getting set up, and Romana was there also teaching and visiting.
She was getting so busy. Did she visit more than once a year?
You know, I think she was there quite a bit in that program. I think she was probably there even during like lecture series and things like that, because he has a lot of stories about her.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So,
Especially he's a guy.
yeah, it had to have been more, but I don't know exactly. You know, that's if he told me, I don't remember that anymore.
And so you have your own studio. You open it commercially. And then
Yes.
at some point you decide, I love working for myself, but the commercial thing isn't my vibe anymore. I want to work at home and create maybe a better, more supportive space and environment for the people who want to follow me or acquiring new people.
Yeah, it started off with just realizing that I really wanted to just focus on the teaching, not the business. And I thought, you know, I'm not really a business person, and I didn't really like having to be in charge of others. I wasn't really great at it either, to be honest. I wasn't great at being in charge of others. And so I would just, for a long time, up until 2020, I would take my clients to another studio space that was already open and use that space and give a percentage to them. But I always had my own clientele. I didn't work for them. And that worked so great for a long time. And I would say that was really valuable experience for me as well, because I did have to learn how to work with other teachers and share space. So I didn't only just have like my own place and my own space. So I think that's really valuable to have to learn how to work with other teachers in the space.
How was that experience in terms of teachers supporting or not supporting each other? How was that environment?
We were really supportive of each other. And, you know, sometimes we would tell each other, hey, you know, you're being a little loud. Could you quiet down or whatever? But I feel like we always worked well together. And I feel like in Fort Collins, I feel like we have a pretty good community here. I don't feel like there's a lot of bullying.
That might not be, yeah, that might not be so common. Just from things that I've heard from other teachers.
Yeah, maybe because we're not a huge city. We're big enough. I mean, we're a college town, but maybe we're just more relaxed, I think.
Maybe. That sounds nice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Let me ask you, when you went through the program or even subsequent programs or any courses, did you ever feel silenced or not encouraged to ask questions? Did you ever feel like nobody was saying anything and it was like that pregnant pause? There's that silence that feels heavy because you know people are thinking and they want to ask, but they don't feel safe to ask. Did you ever have that experience?
Very much so. Yeah. And I think it might have been the way I felt personally. I came to Pilates with a lot of brokenness, you know, physically, mentally, spiritually. I mean, I was broken in all ways. So I was pretty vulnerable when I came to Pilates. So I was more sensitive. And so I really needed a safe space to find myself. And you know, training schools are not that, because, you know, they've got a mission, right? You've got to learn how to, you know, it's like an Olympic sport, you know, you have to learn how to do this.
It's true.
And so there's no tolerance for that. And that was familiar to me because of being prior military, that training hard.
You had to keep your mouth shut.
You kept your mouth shut. And so I think I felt very silenced because I also felt like I was the minority coming in, because I didn't come from a dance background. I didn't come from even an able body. I had a lot of pain, especially for as young as I was, a lot of injuries. And I came in with a severe trauma from the military. So there was just a lot that made me feel different. And so, really, I shouldn't have expected to feel safe there, but I wanted to feel safe there. And so I didn't feel like I could ask the questions, and I felt,
Did you know how to say those words?
no, I didn't know how to say any of it. I cried through so many of my Pilates sessions because I was unraveling, not just physically, but emotionally. And that's where I was like, wow, this is so powerful. And I would tell the teacher, ignore my tears,
Mm-hmm.
let me cry it out and keep teaching me because it was just I cried and cried. I bet.
Did you freak teachers out?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I cried the first 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I really did. And because it was such an unraveling that happened in my body. But, the body really does keep the score.
Oh, yes, it does.
It does, and so I really tapped into that as I was getting into not just the structural damage, but emotional damage.
Did you write about this?
I don't believe I ever wrote about it. I talked about it perhaps in
Your podcast?
the podcast, but I don't really know that I've really put it out there much. No. Yeah, maybe just with one-on-one with others. But it was a real unraveling for me.
Yes, that's the name of your book. I love it.
Yeah, right. I write poetry. It's all in poetry.
Oh,
I love poetry. That's my way of speaking,
that's beautiful.
or expressing myself. Yeah. So I've written a lot of recovery poems, I would say, like in that genre or finding yourself. And Pilates has always been it's
Medicine.
my life's passion and work and medicine. Yeah. I mean, it's been a huge part of just my healing process.
Yes. And that's the layers. The layers peeling back.
In more ways than I thought it would be. So, yeah, I thought it was just going to be physical. But yeah, I felt silenced mostly because of there's not the atmosphere for a broken person because the goal is to get really good at Pilates and there's a timeline.
And perform it well.
And perform it well. And so there's really not, it would have taken me 10 years to get through the program if that was the goal.
Well, which is ironic because the work is about healing, about rehab.
Yes. Yeah, right. It's really, yeah. But I mean, in today's age, though, I mean, can you imagine saying, I'm sorry, you're not going to be certified for 10 years? That's not going to work.
Well, do you have advice for teachers who now currently feel unsafe to speak about their thoughts or their feelings in an environment of Pilates? Maybe not even, but do you have any advice for these kind of teachers who they really just they want witness. They want to be heard. Hey everyone, I wanted to let you know that DarienGold.com has been beautifully redesigned. Besides a new brand identity, the site is simple to navigate. With only 5 menu items, it's easy to glean information about classes and links to the Pilates Mastery app, the ATP podcast, and even to my voiceover website. Plus, I'm offering a special individualized mentoring program. And lastly, Tracing My Path, a digital coffee table book. The Pilates Mastery app has new additions. You can listen to my current podcast season right inside the app. The video player is replaced to help decrease buffering. A replay option is available so you can work on a routine continuously. And our in-app purchase options are coming soon, which include audio only, single exercises, my wall repertoire, and a meditation piece to help you relax after your workouts. Well, that's the latest news. And now, back to the interview.
Yes. I think what I found helpful for myself was I wrote a lot of questions down. I loved writing in my notes. I had lots of notebooks during my my training, I kind of kept to myself and kept quiet. But then you would start to kind of, I had a lot of teachers to choose from. So I would gravitate towards ones that I started to feel like, I think this person's going to get me and understand me and be willing to
Give you space.
give me space. Exactly. And have patience with me as I take my time trying to get this in, in so many levels, not just physically, because it wasn't just physical for me. It was like all levels had to come together at once. And it wasn't just do this or do that. I always had to go slow.
Yes. I think that's missing probably in, at least on the classical side. I think that is a missing component.
Yes.
The humanity of the work somehow gets swept under the carpet because we are all so intent on learning the full repertoire and being able to perform it to the best of our ability. And what gets perhaps lost in all of that is, well, after you get this work in your body, well, what do you do with it? How do you actually teach it to different kinds of bodies, whether you have a dancer or athlete or someone who hasn't worked out in 10 years?
Right.
So how do you take all of this knowledge and sensing what happens and what transpires in the body? How do you actually mold somebody?
Yeah.
Of course, continuing education could do that, but that's never been my experience that we delve in like that.
Right.
Life experiences will feed into the life of a teacher, and either you'll rise above stuff that has happened to you and channel all the good stuff, because ultimately, and we talked about this before, we're here to help people feel better and happier, and they want to come back and have that experience, those experiences with us.
Yeah, I think also it's learning how to hold space for somebody and give them movement, like be curious as a teacher to watch how they're thinking when they're moving, because we're taught so much on how to make it right and how to fix. And so I found early in my teaching that you tend to make people feel kind of bad, right? You don't mean to, but that's how you learn, is to fix. You're not really taught, or maybe I just missed it, but you're not really taught how to hold space and be curious on how they're moving before you start like barking orders at them. It's so much about bark, like heels up, zip your legs, pull your belly in more. And it's like you're getting yelled at, and that's not a comfortable place to find yourself, especially if you have trauma and your reaction to that is to disconnect or to freeze or
Stop breathing.
stop breathing. I mean, you can't connect to your body anymore. You're just trying to follow the person, what they're saying. And it's an out of body experience. When you look at the Pilates method, though, just even based on Joe and how he taught.
Rough.
Yeah, he was kind of rough. But I think everybody was always attracted to it because they could sense the magic in it. So they
Put up with.
were okay with it. They put up with it. They kept coming back for more. And I think that's really why all of us keep doing it, right? But also there's a certain point where we have to say as teachers, especially after this many years, like, isn't there another way to teach this magnificent work without the barking? Is there a way to teach this magnificent work, holding space for someone to see where are they going and are they moving in the right direction? Because Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't expect somebody to be perfect at this. Even after the first year, I mean, gosh, it takes years and years and years to be able to
Peel back all the funky patterning in the body.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really see Pilates as enlightenment in the physicality, So just like any spiritual practice that we have, we don't really expect that we're going to actually reach enlightenment. Or if we do expect that, then we've got a lot of ego, I would say. But so Pilates is kind of the same way. I don't think we ever really get there. We're just constantly working on it, which is what makes Pilates so fun, because you never get to the end. You never get to the end. But I think that the way that Joe taught it and the way, and, he was so passionate about it and he knew how genius it was, but maybe he himself couldn't hold space for himself.
Yeah.
He didn't even learn people's names.
No.
From what Mary Bowen said, right? He didn't learn people's names. He was so about, I'm going to mold this body that walks in here. And he was brilliant at it. But I think we need to let that go and or have space in it. Let's not lose his work, but let's remember that we're teaching an entire individual here.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, in the intro, I did talk about this particular thing that happens in our community about diminishing and bullying. Why do you think that this behavior has been tolerated? Because it's been going on for a while. And of course, social media, we know the power of it. But why does it have to go negative?
Yeah, I think, I have some deep thoughts around that actually. Like I think that just like generational trauma, there's like a generational trauma in Pilates that Joe never got to see how wonderful his method, how big his method got. There was always frustration that people didn't understand how brilliant this was. I think there's a part of that in the division between, authentic or classical or real or, there's all these different words. Is this classical Pilates? Is this authentic Pilates? And is this real Pilates? I think it's the same fight. I think it's the same fight there. I think it's Joe's fight. I think we're all fighting for Joe. And we're saying, like, this is his work. Let's not lose this. But I think that there's also room for the contemporary Pilates in the sense that let's take some of these contemporary ideas and be inspired by Joe's work, And so I think I think everybody's really on the same page if they just stopped and listened to one another. And maybe some people would say that in the contemporary place, maybe they're just being inspired by his work, but they're not teaching his work. That's the things that I've heard. But, maybe that's what the people who take contemporary Pilates need, and maybe if we can all come full circle eventually. I think if we listen to each other, we could learn from one another. And I think that's what's missing. I think it's still the same fight that Joe wanted to be heard. He wasn't heard. We're all fighting for what's authentic, what's real, because we don't want Pilates, what Joe designed, contrology, his work, to be lost. I think that's the fight, but I think that if there's enough momentum that we don't need to worry about that so much anymore, and we need to let that go and come together.
Okay, so what you're saying is the behavior that people have sort of put up with in the Instagram, Facebook environments, it's really underneath it is trying to protect what they deem as the work. And so they get triggered or they get threatened.
Yes. Yes. I think that is exactly what's happening. And well, I think it's just so easy to fight on social media because, it can feel there's a barrier between it. You're not talking to somebody face to face. So it's easy to say, you're right, I'm wrong, or I'm right, you're wrong. So easy to say that on social media. And even like I was even watching this fight this morning between something that one person said and two or three people are bashing that person for what they said. And it's like, well, they can say if it's your own social media feed, you can say whatever the heck you want. And nobody has to agree with you. And that's the thing is, can we agree to disagree?
Well, that would mean we would all have to be grown-ups.
Right. Yes. I think it's important to get to the point of saying, I want to be curious and I know I can learn something from every person, even if I disagree with them.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Without being rude, because that's not how I roll.
Yes.
Have you ever bullied a student or thought about it and then stopped yourself?
Yeah, that's the whole taking self-responsibility thing that I've worked on. I absolutely, especially in the beginning of my teaching, I think that just in the way you're taught and then you teach others, the barking and I was military, so it was really easy to keep barking. And then I realized that that wasn't like when I had my own studio, people weren't as receptive to that. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to change.
You had to
I'm
meow. You
gonna
had to start meowing.
I'm gonna have to change. And so I started to learn through that process, but also no matter what, when we're teaching Pilates, we're teaching a very complex method that is a discipline that if you're having a bad day, you might not be showing up as your best self. And if you get frustrated, it's going to probably show up. And if your expectations of your student is higher than what they're able to perform at the time, then it may feel like bullying to the student because you're not able to even have space for yourself, let alone for them. And so I think earlier on in my teaching, I recognized that and have always continued to work on that. So I would say that some of my students of the past would say, yeah, Heidi's been kind of a bully, but I always would take responsibility for it. I would apologize and do better. And I think that's different than, and that's humbling, right? That's a humbling process to say, well, crap, I really made someone feel bad about themselves and to keep trying to be better, and but also I'm a moody person. I'm moody. I'm moody. Like I am.
Oh, I didn't know.
And so any of my students will say, "Oh yeah, Heidi's moody."
She's in a mood today.
They would say, "Okay, is it a green flag, a yellow flag, or a red flag day?" And I had a hormonal imbalances early, like right after my kids were born. So I was 34 when my second was born. By the time I was 35, my hormones were all over the place. And so I was moody before, but it was more like normal moody. So it never really came out, I would say, as much in my teaching. But having hormonal imbalances, it became a real problem. And so I did have to seek some help with some medication, to support that process so I could still keep showing up. But nobody knows when they come into your studio all the crap you're dealing with in your life because they shouldn't know about it, right? And so we're trying to teach this beautiful method of healing and complexity, but we might be having a real crap day. And so I think that takes a while as a teacher to learn how to filter your everyday life out. And if you tend to be moody already, how not to let that come out on your students. So, but I would say my students are so gracious and loving and kind. And of course, I've always apologized. And I've had some real moments where I've lost my mind, in a session, and I know it's just, but all stemmed from life circumstances and hormonal imbalances and.
But that particular student triggered all of that.
Oh, yeah. They said something really mean. I mean, so, you're still human, but, they're human too. So if they say something maybe out of their own frustration, because remember, the method is it can make us feel like crap if we are like judgmental of ourselves, if we're hard on ourselves, when we're perfectionists. And so that can be lashing out, that can be the teacher lashing out to the student because, you're a perfectionist, or the student feeling judged from themselves, lashing back out, So I think people who are drawn to teaching Pilates are also potentially really control freaks. So we have to be control freaks in recovery. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. There's definitely truth to that. And it leads me to this one of our last questions about the mentors table that I have put together. Would you recommend teachers who might have a challenge being triggered by certain students that they like working with, but sometimes the students aren't that respectful either, and we sort of put up with it because they help pay our bills? Do you think the mentors table would be good for a teacher like that? And if so, why do you think?
I think the mentors table is a great place for that. And especially because It's going to be you who's been teaching for so long. You're holding the space for all of us to show up. And we know you've got all this wonderful knowledge, but we also have each other. And, somebody who's taught for 1 year could say something really magical that makes a lot of sense, based on their life experience that all of us who've been teaching longer may not have gotten there yet. But I think it's a great space to be authentic and real and to say things like, well, I'm in perimenopause and my hormones are all over the place. What the heck do I do when I'm moody? How can I deal with this client? Do you have any suggestions? Because that's real, And so to be able to have a space that we can be authentic and say, I'm struggling with my mental health, or I'm struggling with balance in my life and I'm accepting too many clients and that's what's making me moody or whatever. I'm just using moody as an example. It could be anything. But I think it's a great place to ask questions, to also to get support, to be able to air out our grievances and our thoughts. And I think in the beginning, it might be a lot of that because it's needed so much. It's like a support group for teachers. And then at the same time, not just a support group for teachers, but a place to ask questions that you feel safe, knowing that it's already the space to feel safe for those questions versus when we don't feel so safe if we're in a workshop or whatever. So I think it's going to be fantastic for that.
Thank you. And we had our first gathering about 6 weeks ago. You were there. And how was it for you?
It was like a breath of fresh air. It felt so joyful to be with others. And it seemed like everybody just reached that authentic place immediately quickly. So everyone just was just there. There was no hesitation to just talking about what they needed to talk about. And I think because of what you're calling it, and it just, all of it just kind of, it's like we all get to go, oh, thank goodness I have someone to talk to about this, the struggles I'm having. And I think, so we really, for me, it just felt freeing. It felt like, oh, thank goodness we have a place for this now where we can talk.
And I'm not alone.
And so, yeah, I think for me, it felt like, oh, this is just so great and so needed.
And I love that you asked the question about osteoporosis and what exercises that you would just never give to this type of student, because everyone had their thoughts and their experiences. So that element also exists.
Yes.
We can't know everything.
Right. Yes.
I mean, even us Virgos, we just can't know everything. And so if somebody asks a question and I don't know, we'll figure it out together.
Absolutely. And I loved the book that you showed.
Gwen Miller's book.
You showed us. Yes. And I thought, oh, because I love books. I love books. Like they're my best friends, and so I put that on my list, like I'm going to buy that. I'm so excited. And I didn't know about that book until you showed that. So that was exciting.
And I was even thinking about asking if she might join our group sometime and just talk a little bit. She's been on the podcast a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, but something might present itself that in a more intimate environment that we could get into with her.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that so much. Yes.
And I have been thinking about other people in our community that I would invite to talk to us,
Oh, that'd be so great. Yes, I'm so excited for that.
And so maybe 2026, it's hard to even say those 4 numbers, but in 2026, maybe this is the year where Pilates teachers really feel like there is a place that they can just land and let go and be with others.
Yes.
Like-minded and have the same heart.
I very much hope so. I think that the Mentors Table is a great place to start with that.
Agreed. Heidi, if anyone wants to connect with you or take a lesson, join your group classes. I don't exactly know how you run your studio, but if someone is in the area of Fort Collins, Colorado, and they would like to reach out to you, what's the best way?
I would say text messaging, because my email is really funky. It just kind of sends everybody to spam, and I might miss it if I'm not looking for it. So I usually have people text message me so I can give you my phone number.
Yes, you can give your phone number, and then I'll have it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, it's 970-214-3235.
And do you have a website?
I do. It's HeidiMillerPilates.com.
And what about Instagram?
I don't really have much of a social media presence.
That's okay. You're saner for it.
I really am.
Yes.
I get to just watch all of it unfold.
Yes. Maybe this coming year, we'll start to read more positive interactions with teachers and not sort of tear each other down, but I don't think it's too much to ask that we just cheer each other on.
Absolutely. I think that would be wonderful. I think that's very much needed, and listen to one another and not be in a place of judgment. Like, if we get closed-minded and think our way is the best way, we're never going to
Grow.
We're never going to grow and learn. And so I think, even in the mentors table, having the opportunity when you're listening to somebody to feel that inner judgment that might come out because you're conditioned with it based on your training, perhaps, to say, oh, that's interesting. I just felt myself judge this person internally. Of course, it would never be allowed externally, but to even just recognize that in ourselves, to say, oh, wow, that must be preconditioned in my training, or I haven't let go of that yet. And so I think that'll be good, because we really want all Pilates people.
Agreed.
Because we can really learn from everybody.
Just like you said, someone who just has started to someone who's been teaching 30 and 40 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Heidi.
Yes, thank you.
Heidi Miller.
I really appreciate this. Thank you.
All Things Pilates is produced, written, edited, and hosted by me, Darien Gold. Mastered audio mix, Fabian Romero. Original music, a.k.a. Johnny. If you're enjoying this show, we would love for you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts so you can let others know what you like or love about All Things Pilates. Also, if you're interested in helping to support this podcast, become a subscriber. It helps with the back-end costs that accrue when producing a show. To learn more about our growing community, check out our show notes. When we take the time to truly see one another, we offer the encouragement someone didn't know they needed and remind ourselves that every day is a chance to lift, to notice, and to speak life where it's been missing. Author, unknown.